Rehena. Could you please tell us how the Peace Walk idea came along?
So many various factors usually come into play with something like this, but it's both an implementation of my teacher Thich Nhat Hanh and his practice. It's also a personal journey, and thirdly, it was in response to what was happening last year in October, the increase in violence, not just in Israel and Gaza and but also what was happening in the rest of the world, Sudan, Ukraine, and the 140 wars that are happening and conflicts happening around the world. And it just felt that there was so much action and reaction, division and pain that was happening between people. And while there were lots of initiatives promoting peace, bringing people in division together, and one of them is work that Julie was involved in, what wasn't happening was individual faiths was calling for peace, calling for ceasefire, calling for a cessation of violence, calling for various actions. But the faiths together, united, were not visible. And so it felt very much from a heart perspective that all of us, people of spiritual faiths, have commonality in the ethics, in how we see, look at people, and how we live with one another. So all our faiths are united to respect all life, to live together in harmony and deal with conflict in ways that are different to wars. And thirdly, for all of this to also be in harmony, and just that element of heartfeltness, which is common across all the faiths. But what we're seeing was what we stand against. We stand against this and this and this. This is what we stand for. And standing for something is far more powerful because it unites. And so it came because Thich Nhat Hanh, my teacher, led various peace walks around the world. And when he went to America during the Vietnam War to call for peace, he went on a peace march, and he said he saw more anger, more violence in the peace walk, calling for peace and calling for an end to war. And so this was very much also the idea of how can we do this in a way that doesn't cause division. And so the idea, which is very much in Buddhist tradition and in others, contemplative walking. And his principle was very much, we need, meditation, peace, action needs to get off the mat, but also engage in the world around us. So the idea was, how can we unite the faiths together for us to walk together for what we stand for, which is nonviolence, I guess, nonviolence, and for peace and justice as well. And so that was where the idea came from. And then I reached out to Judith. And the idea of it being, and I'll just say a little bit, what we did was actually went through a lot of reaching out to faiths and sharing what we were wanting to do from and what perspective, which is that we wanted to show our commonality in what we stand for. And there was such enthusiasm and, heartfeltness in coming aboard and doing, getting engaged in this. And, we went through various mechanisms to make sure we have every voice heard, listened to in a way that was co-created rather than one organization leading it and others joined in. And in much synchronicity, part of what Julie was doing aligned with what we were doing in the first silent walk. So we've actually had two, one in January and one in June. And so we reached out, we aligned with them because, again, we wanted every single thing was, this is not the event of the Quakers and the Buddhists. It's an event where we want every faith to put in their own logos, to share it in the networks as if it was their event. And there was various symbolism that was thought through in this event. And you might ask, why silent walking? Why silent? And I think it's because in this noisy world, we so loud in our opinions and so vociferous in saying things that I stand for and you stand for and I stand against and this is my view and this is etc., that we lose sight of what our connection is to one another. And if we actually are silent, then actually maybe we can see the idea is that our hearts connect. In silence, we can literally witness someone else in their true humanity, and we're not clouded by the words or anything else, but it encourages a heart-to-heart connection. The second idea that we had was that we will not have any banners and placards and flags, because again, when we have these banners and placards and flags, we state our position. I stand for this, and therefore it's against what you're standing for. But if we remove all those barriers that prevent us from interacting with one another, from witnessing one another, then there is the opportunity to stand together. So that was why we said no banners, no flags, just yourself. You are enough. Your presence is enough. The third thing we thought very clearly about, which was, peace means something. And we felt that it was important not just to have faith leaders talk about peace and offer prayers. What we wanted were actually lay representatives, lay practitioners who had the grounded experience and dealt with people day in and day out, who understood the conflicts, the anger, the pain that that people in the communities were going through. And importantly, one of the things we said was that it's really important that given there's the absence of banners, given there's the absence of all of that, how is it that people will know that we are on a peace walk? And then we said it will be really great, and the idea of carrying a white flower, not just carrying any white flower, but actually making a white flower and carrying it with you became really symbolic. And the act of making that white flower was a reflection that to cultivate our peace and to cultivate peace is something that each and every one of us needs to do, not just in a march or in a walk or on the mat or in our words, but it's something that we need to invest energy into every single day, every single breath, every single step. And so all of that came together. And what was really interesting, what we also that manifested was that to create that type of energy, you'll find that most of the representatives that offered prayers on both those walks were actually women. And that was very symbolic of we need it, almost an energy, that energy we need to actually cultivate peace. Maybe we need to look at things differently. Maybe we require a different energy to bring this into fruition. And the whole idea of walking slowly from Trafalgar Square across and reversed for both the walks, all the way to Parliament Square and back, took us almost an hour in the slow-paced walk that we took. And that went through the political landscape across that, holds so much political power here in London. And we paused at key places to offer that energy that we were cultivating with every step. And, it was just truly moving to have that. And we did it twice. And the impact of it, I think I'll address a little later. And maybe Judith or Julie may pick up on that. But this, the attention that it actually got, the first walk from the press, from media, and from a whole lot of people who came along because this was something different. It was demonstrating how, even though people didn't know what we were doing, it's created silence in Trafalgar Square. People started nodding. People bought into what it is we're doing. So I think it was powerful in that way. So that was the idea of it the first time, and then the second time again. And the two things for me was an inspiration for my own teacher, but also my own personal journey from being someone who was labeled as a terrorist as a child to actually have cultivated the energy of non-anger, or of not engaging in violence and proclaiming non-violence to that degree that I could now organize a peace walk. So for me, it was that personal transformation.
How did the silent walking meditation bring people together from your end and help them engage in their communities? So what do you think encouraged them?
So it's an interesting question. I think for myself, just the very act of bringing 11 faiths together to share the ethical stuff, who took a position on a few things. One, the need for nonviolence, the need for reconciliation, the need for justice, and the need for peace is in itself bringing so much together. And people of all faiths joined in, and no faiths joined in. We had a Druid who'd never been invited to an event before and was so moved by attending this, so it was not just around getting people there. It was also about bringing in voices who don't always get the opportunity to be connected and heard. And that created such a moving ripple effect, even in the Druid community as well. And so, it brought people together because there was while we encouraged people to wear their clothing of their faith, of their culture, just walking together was really, really symbolic. I think it brought the attention of many people together, and friendships were generated there. But I think more than that, the ripple effect was through the media, the interviews, the Guardian, and all of however it was reported was there. But actually, it stimulated so much energy that the first walk led to the second walk on request, because people felt the call to come together again and again and again. And the second walk, I mean, just as a reminder, the first walk was called Peace is Every Step. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. And the second walk was called Walk With Me. And the second walk was in honor of the lives that are lost in war, the dreams, the hopes of children, of adults, of potential dreamers, artists, etc., that are lost in this type of situation. And the second walk got the attention. We had people that came for the second walk in London from France, from all over the UK, but more importantly, it set up a little bit of a global movement, because on the second walk, people had seen the first walk and wanted to participate. So the second walk touched people that walk, and on that day, happened in the US, in San Francisco, in Washington, in New York, and in Botswana. So people came together around that and walked together in the different countries. And it didn't stop there, because every few weeks I get a request for how can we do the peace walk in Geneva? How can we do the peace walk in Melbourne? How can we do a peace walk wherever we are? And on the 21st of September this year, there was a mindful walk in Jerusalem, which again was inspired and was support was requested from us. And there was a peace walk in Jerusalem on International Peace Day. And even now, there's still a request of people wanting to do this, to bring together their communities, to bring together the people who may be seen as being on opposing sides. And it's not so important, well, it's equally important, not just for what's happening around the world, but also to address and bring people together right here in the UK, in the divisions that we face. So I think for me that's a way that it's actually bringing people together to engage in their communities. But most importantly, I think it's the energy that another way is possible, that other things are possible, that things are possible with one small idea, something can happen, that I may be the one person whose energy may take the cup. It takes one drop of water to change a cup from it being full to it overflowing. So maybe someone who has been inspired by the walk may be that one drop that will tilt that cup from being full to overflowing to effect the change that we want. So that's all I have to say, I think, as an inspiration, not just to all of you, actually, that nothing can stop us if we have an idea and it comes from our heart and it's genuinely well-intentioned for the well-being of all of us, and to do it with kindness.
Thank you very much, Rehena. It's really powerful have so many people walked with one voice, you know, with one thought in their head, and that also occurred to welcome the second walk. Rehena, why walking meditation and not another way of meditation?
So maybe various levels to this question. Most people associate Buddhism as something that we sit on a mat with the intention of trying to bliss out. Meditation is not something we do on the mat. Meditation is a practice that we can bring into every single aspect of our daily life, whether it is making tea, whether it is eating our food, whether it is working on our computers. It can be an act of meditation. It can be an act of mindfulness. It can be a reminder and a bell of what it is we are doing, the relationship that we have through the rest of the world, through whatever it is that we are doing, the water, the earth, everything connects us to everything else. And so to think, just cooking food can be meditative because can be done with ease, with love, with care, with peace. And it can be done in a way that it's a tangible reminder that as I'm cooking my food, what I'm cooking, where it comes from. There's such an interconnection with the cultivation of what is on my table. Such a huge connection to so many beings that have contributed to that. So that's an act of meditation. Walking meditation in this case was really inspired, as I said, by Thich Nhat Hanh. And for those who don't know, Thich Nhat Hanh was a Zen master in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, who was nominated for the Peace Nobel Prize for Peace by Martin Luther King, was good friends with Martin Luther King. And when he was meditating in Vietnam as a monk, as a young monk, in the meditation halls, and bombs were actually landing around him as the war was unfolding in Vietnam, he came to a realization that meditation, that engagement doesn't happen just with ourselves on the mat, but engagement happens with bringing what we've cultivated on the mat, the ease and peace in ourselves, to bring that into the world. And so for him, engaged meditation, engaged Buddhism was really important. Applied Buddhism is really important. How do we bring what it is we've cultivated in ourselves to be in the world around us, both as an inspiration, but also to cultivate it? And actually, peace is not achieved through the destruction of the other, in our minds, in our thoughts, in our interactions, and in countries. It is not built on retribution, but reparation. And it is not built on separation. It is built on reconciliation. So if we can cultivate a lot of those elements in ourself, reconciliation with ourself, peace as an energy with ourself, that means we can actually embody it and act with it, with that intentionality all around us, in our interactions, in our walking, in our exercise, in our eating. And the intention is to do that. Not that there should be no conflict, because that's not possible. But being and embodying peace gives us an alternative way that we can have a little moment to reflect on doing things differently. Because if we do what we always do, or we always did, we'll get what we always got. And we see that. We see over and over again, we do the same things over and over again. It doesn't give us the results. We vow it's the end, and it happens again and again. So we need to effect that shift change. And part of that shift change is internal. Because the peace is not just between countries, but between us when we talk to one another, between our loved ones when we have an argument, between people on the street that we see or maybe don't see, because we, and it's in all those elements. Can we look at the world with, as the Dalai Lama says, the religion is kindness. Can we look at that? But we can only look at others in kindness if we can be kind to ourselves as well. I hope that helped, Ida, because that was a little bit of a difficult question.